The power game. They say power reveals who we are. But what if power actually created who we are? Donald Trump's story is a portrait of this. A man who built empires, destroyed reputations, and yet never left center stage. Some call him a genius, others mad. But the fact is, no one ignores Trump. And perhaps that's exactly what makes him so dangerous and so fascinating. While many tried to follow the rules, he rewrote them. Trump understood early on that the world is driven not by truth, but by perception. He didn't need to be loved, it was enough to be talked about. And in this game, he was the supreme master. From his rigorous childhood to the White House throne, every step seemed calculated for one thing: winning. And winning, for him, was never about justice, but about control. The most intriguing part? Even after losing the most powerful position on the planet, he continues to dominate the global stage, as if he were still sitting in the Oval Office, pulling invisible strings that move multitudes. This video isn't about politics, it's about strategy, about the man who turned his life into a chessboard and power into his favorite play. Childhood and education. Donald John Trump was born into a cradle that blended discipline, ambition, and a dash of chaos. His father, Fred Trump, was a relentless entrepreneur who saw bricks and mortar as the path to greatness. Growing up amid this cement empire shaped the boy to see the world as a battlefield, where the strong conquer and the weak are forgotten. As a boy, he learned that money isn't just paper. It's language, it's power, it's a way to be heard in a deaf world. At school, Donald wasn't a model student, but he was the one who drew attention wherever he went. Impulsive, competitive, and defiant, he was sent to a military academy at age 13, not as punishment, but as a test of character. There, he learned about hierarchy, command, and resistance, but also about rebellion. Many would say it was in this rigidly ordered environment that he developed the mindset of someone who refuses to be commanded by anyone. Interestingly, while other teenagers dreamed of adventure or fame, Donald dreamed of skyscrapers. He spent hours watching his father negotiate land and erect buildings in Brooklyn, trying to decipher the secret behind these structures that seemed to touch the sky. It was there that his fascination with building was born, with leaving a mark, not just physical but symbolic. And this flame would accompany him to the top of the business world, a peak that would soon become a minefield. Beginning in the real estate market. Coming out of college, Trump didn't just want to be Fred Trump's son. He wanted to be the name that would redefine the New York skyline. While his father prospered in middle-class neighborhoods, Donald dreamed of dominating Manhattan, the beating heart of power and ostentation. He saw what others called risk as a stage, and what they called arrogance he interpreted as vision. It was the beginning of a journey where confidence and audacity would become his trademark. It was in the 1970s that Donald began to build his own narrative. With the same drive of a gambler who bets everything on a single play, he convinced investors, banks, and even politicians that he could transform decaying buildings into city jewels. His first major triumph was the Grand Hyatt Hotel, a symbol of the turnaround that would put his name in the spotlight. Every brick he built carried a silent message. Trump is here, and he's here to stay. But behind the flashes of brilliance and million-dollar contracts, there was a lesson few saw: that success isn't born solely of talent, but of the courage to be seen when no one believes in you. Donald faced bureaucracy, skepticism, and fierce criticism, but he didn't back down. On the contrary, he turned each obstacle into fuel to go further. And this same ambition, which made him rise so quickly, would soon reveal its most dangerous side, that of someone who plays too high, without measuring the cost of the next move. Rise as an entrepreneur. By the 1980s, Donald Trump was no longer just a name. He was a brand, a symbol of power and extravagance. While other businessmen sought discretion, he sought the spotlight. He signed buildings with his last name, emblazoned it on casinos, yachts, and even water bottles. For him, selling luxury wasn't about the product itself, but about the experience of being part of the Trump empire. The world was beginning to see him not just as a businessman, but as a spectacle. Trump understood, before many, that success needed to be visible to be believed. He turned interviews into stage shows, meetings into performances, and criticism into fuel for his narrative. While Wall Street teetered, he erected golden towers and cultivated an almost mythological image of himself, that of the man who turns everything he touches into gold. The secret was personal branding. Trump didn't sell real estate, he sold the idea of being Trump. But the power game always comes at a price. And, as with any empire, the taller the edifice, the stronger the impact of its fall. In the early 1990s, the tide turned, debt, bankruptcies, and negative headlines began to tarnish the golden glow. Still, it maintained a firm and defiant gaze. After all, those who built their history on bold bets knew that true power lies not in never falling, but in rising when everyone expects otherwise. Television fame and cultural influence. When Donald Trump debuted in The Apprentice, he stopped being just a tycoon. He became a pop personality, a mythological figure of American success. The catchphrase, "You're fired," became a cultural mantra, and the public saw him as the embodiment of authority, self-confidence, and power. It was the spectacle of capitalism in prime time. Trump understood before any politician that television doesn't just display power, it manufactures it. With each episode, he reinforced a narrative that blended discipline and drama, meritocracy and vanity. The audience watched not just to learn about business, but to feel the thrill of being faced with someone who seemed unshakable. Interestingly, behind the scenes, this character served as a laboratory. He tested his influence, his ability to manipulate perceptions, and build loyalties. The Apprentice it was less a program and more an essay on psychological power. And as the studio lights dimmed, a silent question arose. What would happen if this character stepped through the screen and into real life, into the decisions that shape the destiny of a nation? Trump already had the answer. He knew that charisma and narrative control could be far more effective weapons than any economic plan. And so, between reality TV and headlines, he began to gestate his next move. The leap from fame to politics. Presidential campaign and election. When Donald Trump announced his candidacy for President of the United States, many laughed. They called him a joke, a walking reality show, a hopeless outsider. But what few realized was that he understood something traditional politicians had forgotten: the power of emotion. He wasn't speaking to voters. He was speaking to people tired of promises, frustrated with the system, and hungry for someone to say what everyone thought, but no one dared say. His campaign was a practical lesson in narrative and polarization. While his opponents used statistics, he used short, direct, and explosive sentences. He turned rallies into spectacles, microphones into weapons, and social media into trenches. Each tweet was a calculated blow, not against the press, but in favor of his visibility. He understood that, in the digital age, whoever dominates attention dominates power. And attention was what he had in abundance. The result was a political earthquake. When the votes were counted and Trump emerged as the 45th President of the United States, the world realized that politics had changed forever. The businessman who started out trading land now controlled the global chessboard. But like any experienced player, he knew. Winning the game is one thing, staying in it is quite another. And that was the beginning of the most controversial phase of his life. Controversies and falls. Being President of the United States put Trump in the eye of the storm. Every decision, every phrase, every gesture became global headlines. Between applause and scandal, he became a polarizing phenomenon, loved and hated with equal intensity. Criticism, investigations, impeachment, The empire of power began to crack. But true to his nature, Trump didn't back down. He turned every attack into ammunition to reinforce his narrative of persecution and resistance. While many leaders feared losing their reputation, Trump seemed to thrive on chaos. His fiery speeches, his spats with the media, and his unpredictable statements created a climate of culture war. To some, he was a visionary who challenged the system. To others, a dangerous populist flirting with authoritarianism. Interestingly, through it all, Trump maintained control of one essential thing: the stage. Even in crises, he never stopped being the protagonist. And when the empire began to crumble, with political defeats and the weight of investigations, many bet on its demise. But to underestimate Trump is to ignore his essence. He was born amid pressure and grew up in confrontation. He didn't see his downfall as a defeat, but as a rehearsal for a comeback. And this comeback, planned with the coolness of a strategist and the boldness of a showman, would be even more surprising than his first rise. The return and global impact. Even outside the White House, Donald Trump never left the spotlight. He understood that, in the age of social media, silence is the only possible oblivion, and he would never allow that. He transformed his departure into a spectacle, his defeat into a banner, and his name into a movement. Where many saw the end, he saw fertile ground for a new beginning. He once again gathered crowds, this time with a messianic, almost prophetic tone, promising to restore a betrayed America. But Trump's impact extended beyond American borders. His leadership style inspired politicians worldwide, reshaped public debate, and exposed a global wound: the crisis of trust in the elite and institutions. The Trumpist phenomenon became a symbol of an era in which truth competes with narrative, and image is more important than fact. Love or hate, no one was indifferent. He had transformed politics into entertainment, and entertainment into power. Today, Trump's legacy continues to be debated at dinner tables, universities, and parliaments. Some see him as a hero, others as a threat. But what's undeniable is that he redefined the rules of the game, and perhaps that's what makes him so fascinating. Trump didn't just play the power game, he reinvented it, leaving a question that echoes in the air: how far is someone willing to go to win? If you like this video, like it now, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Because here, we go deep behind the scenes of power. The power game. Ultimately, power isn't about positions, titles, or fortunes. It's about influence, about the ability to move people, shape opinions, and turn defeat into a narrative. Trump understood this better than anyone. He showed that whoever dominates the attention dominates the game. And perhaps, without realizing it, you're playing the game too, on social media, in your decisions, in your everyday conversations. The difference is, are you playing the game or being played by it? Think about it. How many times have you believed a story simply because it was told with confidence? How many times has appearance spoken louder than being? The world is made of discourse, and whoever controls the narrative controls the future. The question remains: what are you constructing now? An image or a truth? Perhaps true power lies in knowing the difference. If this video made you think, then the game has already begun. Like it now, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications, because here we don't just talk about power, we decipher it. And the next chapter will show you that nothing as it seems is exactly what it is.